list of additional things that we can. It's a tape recording of their meeting. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Let's see, which one is that? Okay. Yeah. Let's try that top one. And the issue is they are telling the board of supervisors how trustworthy and how lenient they're being with us landowners, and that they're staying 500 feet away from our buildings, and they've contacted every landowner, and that they worked that out with everybody. Nobody said a word to me about it, and as I showed before, it's 300, just a shade over 300 feet away from that residence. I'd like to have them blown out. Yeah. Let's do that top one. If you click on the link, does that get you there? That's, oh yeah. Let's try that top link. I think that's the one that I want. Do I click that or no? I can't. No, Stan. I think. Okay. They can do anything. They really can't. I'm amazed at how. I'm sorry. What's that? No, you don't need to write. Do not write if they play audio. Do make sure you get the part where they said staff can do anything though. It's a short clip, but it reinforces what I'm saying. Apparently staff can't do everything. You're not currently set up to play audio for it. Okay, so. Okay, well, the link will be in the record, so I have a written transcript from notes of that. Can I enter that? Is it already been entered? No. Sorry. Yes, yes, would you like to make that a hearing exhibit in this matter? Yes. Okay. Hold on. John. What? Do I make copies? Oh, okay. Out there, I can read what it says. Do we still need to make copies? Not anyway. We just like to see how many times we can say Chuck on the record. So we can come back to that unless it messes up your line of questioning. No, I don't think so. I'd go on to something else for the moment. Okay, thank you. You had also said, I think, that Exhibit 608 concerns the emergency response availability in your area. Yes. If you bring up that Shenandoah map, there's another video on there, a clip from the Page County Board meeting, where the Page County Board Supervisor is talking about the response time. And the response time to my farm is a big issue because the response comes from Essex, but it also comes from Shenandoah. The average response time during the daytime is probably going to be 15 minutes by the time they get to the fire station, the EMS, wherever they're at, put their equipment on, drive 8 miles to get out there. If it happens to be at night, you better add another 10 minutes to that response time, simply because people have to get out of bed, get their vehicles. Some of them have to go to the fire station, others will drive straight there. That's a big issue when you're talking about a release from a pipeline that's deadly. We can't stand a 15 or 25 minute session of really supercritical CO2.
And
I want to flip up to the following map then. And that dotted line shows you, yeah, okay, there we go. It also shows you, that's why it was tied into this clip. But apparently you can't play video. It tied into this clip. The proposed line, you see how close it is to Hy-Vee to Walmart. The supervisor talks about this building right here, the old Eagles building. It has a couple of different manufacturing facilities in it now. See how close that is.
and that's right south of the Hy-Vee.
That's, yeah, the Hy-Vee is here. The Orschelt's is there. There's a big Walmart over here. There's a retirement building went up right in this area. It's going up as we speak. They're all within a half mile of that. And as he, in this, as he said, our fire department doesn't have the capability to answer a call like that. He has safety concerns about it. We just have to hope for the best. And hope doesn't a lot of help when you're dealing with release of compressed CO2.
Just for the record, the city of Shenandoah there, there's a vertical red line on the west edge of the city. Is that the county line?
This one?
Yes.
Yes, that's the county line. This is Fremont over here, Page County over there.
So part of Shenandoah is actually in Page County.
The majority of it is in Page County. Part of it is in Fremont County.
Oh,
and
okay.
The ethanol plant is, there it is. The ethanol plant's right here.
In Fremont County.
In Fremont County.
All right.
And this building is a double window factory in Fremont County. But it's all Shenandoah. And that individual from the Page County Board of Supervisors is also on EMS. So he's quite familiar with the training that has or has not been given.
And have you been shown by Summit, or have they told you what the range of dispersion would be if there is a leak?
Of course not. They haven't released any dispersion bombs to us. That seems to be a top secret. I don't know why. I think you've released it to the attorneys, but it hasn't been released to the public, it hasn't been released to the EMS.
Is there anything that Summit has said or that you've learned since your written testimony that changes any of your written testimony?
Since I wrote that written testimony, I've only become more concerned about the liability issues that I will have considering this. That's also in that paper that he's photocopying. That has the names on it too of the Summit employees. The Summit employees, again, as I said, they visited all these county board of supervisors meetings. And at the board of supervisors meeting, they said, well, Summit will indemnify the farmers for any losses, and that is correct. That's what it says in the easement, as far as installing the pipeline. But if you read the easement carefully, they don't do anything as far as indemnifying us if there's a release after the pipeline's in use. If I accidentally would do something tillage-wise, or if I hire some custom work to go out there and they would happen to do something that bothers that pipeline, whether it's settling or whether it's hitting the pipeline, I'm exposed. My liability insurance will cover it. As you see in the as you saw in the pre-file testimony, this is a pollutant. No liability company is going to cover that. So that's why it's up to Summit Carbon to do it. And in their private meetings with the, not private, open meetings meetings with the boards of supervisors in Page County and in Montgomery County and in Potawatomi County. We cover all of that. It's someone's responsibility. Absolutely, it's not the farmer's intent, and the lady admits that we can't buy liability insurance for that. Well, that opens up if someone doesn't cover it, which their easement doesn't say that, it opens us up to liability from the neighbors, what crops get killed, any individuals that would happen to be harmed by it. That is a necessary element that needs to be in that easement if we're going to go this route. First, there shouldn't be an easement, but if you're going to go that route, we have got to have some protection in case there is a release. And we're being hung out to dry without that.
I think we have copies of that Potawatomi County Supervisors meeting.
Yeah, April the 18th of 23.
So this would be, technically Mr. Jorde's witness. Do you want to lay the foundation for this, Mr. Jorde? You guys work pretty well together, so you can tell me. Sure, I'd be happy to. Sir, during the course of your testimony, you've had marked a hearing exhibit. It's a 3-page exhibit, and it appears to be some notes of a Potawatomi County Board of Supervisors meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
And as far as you know, those are true and accurate summary of what happened at that meeting.
What identical to the clip that we had prepared for you to play that was unavailable according to the system.
And that clip, which is a link found on Exhibit 608, page 12, not only do you want the physical piece of paper in evidence, you want the content of the link of the audio in evidence as well. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then this hearing exhibit, because we can't play it, is essentially a recitation of what occurred at that meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Then we would offer Mr. Maher's hearing exhibit that was just photocopied, and we can make that Landowner Exhibit 616.
I may not finish my comment about zoning.
Sorry, just get some clarification. The video is already admitted into evidence, so we are only talking about the transcript. Did you make that? Is that the motion you made, Mr. Jorde? Sorry, just wanted to get clarified here. Okay.
Yes. Yes, as to this exhibit here.
Okay. Objections?
I believe I have a foundation objection subject to, I can ask it, or if Mr. Jorde would ask it for me, who wrote these notes? Well, okay, then I have two questions. Who prepared these notes that are found on these pages?
My neighbor Jan Norris.
Okay, and is your handwriting found on these pages?
Absolutely.
And then you've subsequently verified by listening to the audio and reviewing these notes that they're true and accurate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, nothing further.
Did you still have an objection?
I have no objection.
Okay. One bit and give the way due. Thanks for your patience. Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
So looking at Exhibit 616, what in there did you want to point out?
At this meeting, with Mr. Ryman Gibson, Isaac Rousseau, and Sherry Timmons, Isaac Rousseau I believe is called a construction engineer for Semiconductor. And he was testifying, if you look at that first question, how close to someone's house? 500 foot or more to a residence. And I've heard that in more than one meeting, but we're sticking to this meeting at Potawatomi County. He says, if it's less than 500, we talk to people to see if it's okay. Nobody's talked to me. They never mentioned it. They didn't care. Nobody gave a twit about that. And maybe we'll try to move it. For the most part, it's 500 minimum. And then if you read down further, that same individual, Mr. Rousseau, says, and what if we have a one-off? There's a takeoff, so we'll work with the neighbor if it's his house, or we'll work with the landowner, but we try to stay 500 feet. Well, I found that very interesting because 2 miles to the south of me, they're less than 500 feet from two residences, and 2 miles to the north of my property, they're less than, they're less than 500 feet. 2 miles north of my property, they're less than 500 feet from that residence. That residence being Darwin and Lori Johnson to the north, Blaine Maher to the south, Morgan Nelson and Shane Houston to the south also. So there's 4 residences within 4 or 5 miles that are all one-offs. If you see what I mean, I didn't exactly buy the testimony of Mr. Rousseau when they're so diligent about working to get 500 feet or more from their pipeline.
I think that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Copos was first. Sorry. We'll get you.
Good morning, Mr. Maher. I'm Jean Comas. You've talked about your alternate routes that you suggested that were turned down, but you haven't really described some of the topographical issues on your farm of the final pipeline. Can you bring up the KMC map and explain what some of those waterways like the creeks, river, etc.?
Yes. All right. Now, this is a creek, obviously. Water in it, not a lot, but there's water in it all the time. And as you see, the pipeline, it's not quite a 45, but pretty close to it. Pull that map up, because I want to look at and I'll pull it down. Excuse me, wrong direction. All right, stop. And you see these corners that they've made in the pipeline right here and right there. They're on my neighbor's property. Now, I'm told that that's really a big no-no because it takes a lot of extra pressure to pump fluid through them. My original idea of coming along the property over here to the intersection and then going north along there would have required 145 degree right there. But instead, we've got this almost 90. This is almost a 90. We've got a good 45 there. And I'm not sure what the angle is on that. It's less than 45. The route they've chosen is a more difficult route for their pipeline than what I had suggested to start with. And that just irritates the daylights out of me. Why would they want to do something like that and endanger the residents of the house, my family, working around that every moment? I don't understand that. As far as the rest of it, topographically, this is we're the Marshall Soil Association, and these obviously are terraces. There's terraces in here that don't show up because they're not grassback terraces. There's terraces over here that are grassback terraces, and then they go to broad base right here. The purpose of the terraces, Page County was one of the leading counties in the state of Iowa in terracing the soil after the 1930s erosion episode to try to save the soil. And consequently, they've done a very good job. They're one of the most heavily terraced areas in the state, I believe. Between the terraces and the no-till, we do everything we can to save our soil because it's a loess soil, it's a wind-blown soil, and it's highly erodible. So when you put in a pipeline and you go right from here to there, straight up the hill, you're opening it up to a lot of erosion. You can get heavy rain or whatever. The other half of it is they compact this. They'll compact that. Wherever they go, they're going to compact the soil. The only way to solve that and to grow a crop on there is to go in and subsoil that. And as a witness you had a few weeks ago said, it would be best if you could plant
a cover crop, but
a cover crop's not very practical out in the middle of the field. Maybe along the edge of the field, like I suggested, I could do something like that. But out here, it's not physically possible. And to subsoil that, you can't just drive up and down the hill. You're not flat like central Iowa or northern Iowa. You have to go with the contour. So you take a swath this way and that way and this way and that way and this way and that way for 3,300 feet. You see the time that I'm talking about that it's going to take to halfway rejuvenate that? And even then it's going to take several years. It's got to take a couple of freeze-thaw cycles, and we're not sure how much damage that's going to do because with the no-till, we've been doing no-till since 1978. Actually, it's 1974 to be correct. And we've built up a fairly good layer of productive soil on these hills. We've been working our best to try to keep it there between the no-till and the terraces and the drainage in the terraces. The productivity of the soil has increased significantly over the years. This has the potential to destroy it anywhere they go with their equipment. And that's a big, significant financial drain, drawback, in addition to what I had said before the break. So, does that answer the question that you were asking?
Yeah, well, a little bit. Yeah, that was very good. I had another question. You indicated you talked to Grant Terry,
Yes.
who was an engineer for Summit.
Yes.
Did you describe this, your questions with him pertaining to that?
Well, he and I were standing right here at that spot. You can see the terrain.
Just
I
to
don't
clarify
think
real
that-
quick, Mr. Maher, it's really difficult on the record to figure out where here and there is.
I'm sorry.
You could just say jog to the left, south of this terrace, wherever it may be. So that when we're reviewing the record after the hearing, we'll need to be able to go back and see exactly where you were talking.
Thank you. We were standing at these grain beds here. It's very easy. They're on top of the hill. It's very easy to see down the valley and up the other side. I do not recall that I discussed compaction with you. As an engineer, a project engineer, I would hope that he would understand that fact.
I have another question. You mentioned that you were going to, in the easement, that there would be a valve located on your property. Where is that?
That same day, as we were standing at the grain bins, he said they wanted to put a valve right next to the road, right here where I'm shaking. And I said, no way. Consequently, they paid this individual that owns this property, and they're going to put a valve here, is my understanding.
So they did remove it from yours, because I was wondering if you knew how much space and
It was a 50 by 50 valve, a 50 by 50 space circled by a chain link fence with a remote valve. That is what I was told.
you mentioned that your grandfather purchased this farm, so you're the third generation, but you have children and grandchildren, so you have 5 generations that will be inheriting this land.
Yes, I think it would be the 5th generation. Yes.
In the easement, the fact that this was in perpetuity, did you discuss this with them, that it's forever and ever, the easement agreement?
I did not discuss it with those individuals that day. I assumed they knew what an easement was. I know what an easement is. Apparently, never got to that point. I never thought it was a common understanding of what an easement is.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Hayek, I had your name written down. Okay, thank you. Ms. Ryan.
Thank you. Good morning. I wanted to ask you specifically about some of your future plans that you discussed in your testimony. And you specifically referenced a part of your land that currently has pasture, that you're interested in building terraces and tiling.
Yes.
Can you point out where that is?
This area with this shading, and then up here, this area with this shading.
So that's the paler color strip of land that goes north-south,
Yes.
right through the center.
Yes.
Okay. And you wanted to do that to grow row crops there, right?
Yes. It has been pasture. I've had cattle and worked with cattle all my life. I was raised on that farm. I'm to the age now where I still enjoy cattle. Physically, I'm not interested in being chased by bad mama cows at my age. And we have a few health problems in our family. And that has taken time also. So for those reasons, I was intending to withdraw this pasture or this land from pasture and turn it into row crop. But I was intending to do it over maybe a 5-year period.
Maybe how we can help with the NRCS.
Can I interrupt for just a moment?
Yes.
Just for the record, can you explain what NRCS is?
Natural Resources Conservation Service. I would expect to get help from them in some way to reform this ground into row crop. Obviously, I can't. Now, if you were being logical, you would say, well, why do you want to do this? This pipeline only impacts that. I have to have this done before any potential eminent domain would give Summit the right to come in on my property and put a pipeline nowhere through my pasture. Because those easements say you cannot impound water, you cannot move soil, you cannot do anything over that easement other than just till it. So consequently, if you create a terrace, you're going to take a foot into a soil to create that terrace that's going to lower that soil on top of the pipeline, and I can understand why they don't want that. But that puts me in the position of not being able to form, to create, to fix my farm in the way I want it for myself and future generations. Because everything we've done on here is to protect this for future generations. The no-till, terraces, saves the soil so that it's productive. Well, that's the purpose of working with this pasture here. Is trying to do that without doing it before a pipeline would be put in there. Will make it impossible to do that. And I started to say before, why would this impact that? You have a logical progression of events. If you were to get an instruction manual, it's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. If you start at step 4, things don't work very well. If I was to do this logically, I would start with this upper piece first, and then I would do this lower piece second. But this pipeline is forcing me to do this in a very concentrated, quick manner in order to complete it. Because if this becomes row crop, and that's bad, it's not using the ground at all. You can't house up in the buildings to work the cattle and the calves. You can't get out to it. steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, in very quick order, as opposed to what would normally be 5 or 6 years maybe. And that would get help from the NRCS, which I'm not getting help.
So just so that I'm clear, normally you would work your way north to south. You would do what, a little bit each year over a few years?
I would do the north half, say, next year, and do the south half 2 or 3 years later to kind of heal financially.
And in your testimony, you mentioned $70,000 to $80,000. Is that the amount that you would expect to get from cost share programs?
No, I would probably get, let's see, what's that? I might get 30,000 because you have the cost of your project, and then they would match half, and I would match half. But there's a lot of other work that goes along with this area that extends out here and extends out there to make this farmable. You don't want to put in new terraces in one field and have them mismatch in the other, because when you get out there with a planter or a combine, your head will spin as to which way do I go to make a logical progression of growth in the spring so that the combine can follow them in the fall. So you blend it together and you have to go out into the fields on either side of it to match up with the existing terraces.
If you weren't able to do the terracing, would the land be usable for anything other than pasture?
It's highly erodible land as classified by the NRCS. I don't believe I can do anything with it.
And then, final issues I want to address. You said that you're doing this for future generations, and so I kind of want to ask you a little bit about business planning for the business side of the farm, because you talked about doing that over several years, and in your testimony you mentioned a 5 to 10 year plan, which I think to some people may sound like a ways in the future, but how does that all fit into, when you're planning your farm business, how, timing wise, how long do you plan ahead?
You can plan ahead as much as you want. You can plan ahead 20 years if you like. And the planning ahead is for financial viability, to be able to do the projects that you have in mind. I've been working on this planning ahead for 15 years, knowing that my children, my son and my sons-in-law are not currently farmers. This would probably be rented out in some place, and or, as it's looking now, one of the grandsons may rent this. And they're not going to be able to make use of the pasture ground. And I want this farm in such a condition that they don't have to worry about tiling. They don't have to worry about terraces. They don't have to worry about the impact of ground that's highly erodible that they can't do anything with. And I want it in a good state of cultivation with good nutrient management. Now, doing all that takes money. And money is what determines the timeline. So that's been in my head for 10 or 15 years. This and some other projects that I have, and we've been slowly checking them off as we go. This pipeline comes along and throws my planning into chaos.
And when it comes to the money aspect, you said that, NRCS told you might get cost share help in 7 to 10 years. So I assume that's the kind of time span when you have to look forward.
If in Page County, if you want to use what they call state money. You get on the list, and I believe they said I was number 145 or 147 on the list of landowners that wanted help in Page County. And they told me that they do 5, 6, or 7 a year. Yeah, that's a real laugher, isn't it? Now, there's also the EQIP money. EQIP is federal money, and that's a little more attainable as far from my point of view. And as I said, I thought, because if you see this winding creek river over here, that's Walnut Creek. That's a highly impacted creek. And our land up here joins it, and we're right next to it there, and that is CRP ground right along the edge of that. We try to prevent erosion. This creek right here that would collect the runoff runs right into the Walnut Creek right there. That's short quarter mile. So that's the problem that I see with not having the ground protected. That's why we terrace and we tile and we no-till. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's just these kinds of projects. If you're looking for the best financial, bang for your buck, you're not going to go out and do this in a 2-year period from planning to doing.
Absolutely not. I would never dream of doing it this short a period of time. But I'm forced into it by the potential of the IUB granting Summit Carbon the access to my land in that location.
And
your decisions will force me, as your potential decision has forced me into doing this prematurely. That's how I want to state that.
One final line of questioning along those lines. You said that this is part of a much longer term plan that you've been working on for 15 years with some, gradually working through some things. What parts of that plan did you complete before now?
This field is terraced through here. There are broad-based terraces in here, which are broad-based terraces are terraces that don't have grass on either side. You can farm both sides of them. We have field tile laid in the channel of each of those terraces so that they drain adequately. Some years when it does rain, the terraces can get full, and having drain tile in there helps evacuate that water so the crop stays viable. It also prevents the terrace from overflowing and eroding the backside of it if you get too much rain too close together, and the natural ability of the soil cannot absorb and or release the water in the channel quick enough before the next rain comes. So that's why we put tile in the channels of those broad-based terraces. In these narrow-based terraces, they're sloped, and you can put a riser here, and it'll collect the water from this point to that point. You can put a riser here, and it'll collect water from here to there, and go out in an underground line towards the creek. So we've done numerous amounts. If you look, we have all of our tile mapped out and on computer. If you looked at all the underground tile in there and on this farm, you would follow your mind. And we have some slope to our ground. We're not like northern Iowa where they pattern tile, but we do have to pattern tile some. And that river bottom, the ground higher that was close to the Walnut Creek, that's pattern tile. So we spent a lot of money on tiling, we spent a lot of money on terraces, and worked really hard to keep the trees off the terraces, because the birds are very adept at planting trees for us. And that's a continual battle, because as trees grow on the terraces, it saps the moisture out of the soil, it'll ruin the terrace eventually, and it'll ruin the salability and viability of the farm. So there's things of that nature. There's other land that we have that we're doing the same sort of thing on. Trying to prevent erosion, trying to get it in a state of productivity to hand on to the next generation.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay. Mr. Nagle.
How are you? Just have a couple of follow-up questions. On page 17 of your testimony, if the staff can bring up direct testimony. Could you read to yourself the answer there to that first question, and then I have a question for you. Where it says where the word location occurs on the second line, do you really mean the word condition and not the word location?
That would be appropriate.
You'd like to make that
Yes.
correction to your testimony.
Thank you.
And then you were talking to Mrs. Colas about restoration of what it would take to restore your property in that area. Do you recall that conversation with her?
Mrs. Colas.
When you're talking about using a subsoiler,
Oh, that, yes, go ahead.
okay. Is a subsoiler a type of cultivation equipment?
Yes, it reaches into the soil, depending upon your attachment and the power of your tractor. You can go 18 to 24 inches deep. You'll have a knife that goes down with the foot on the bottom. There may be 15, 20 inches apart, and it breaks up through the compaction, causes large chunks of compacted soil to come to the surface. And you have to wait for rain, and you have to wait for a freeze-thaw cycle. And hopefully you can get that done in a year or two. But it takes the rain and it takes the freeze-thaw cycle to break up the compacted platelets in the soil. The soil is made up of little platelets, and they have air pockets in them. The air pockets are what absorb the water when it rains, and then the roots access the moisture in that soil as they need moisture to grow. Compaction squeezes that, so there's no room for water. That's why compacted soil erodes. The water can't get into it. There's no, we call that tilth. There's no tilth to the soil. It's a compacted, it's like, as hard as this floor. It will absorb water. So that's what you have to do to try to bring these areas where this construction type of equipment has run. That's what you have to do to try to bring it back into productivity. It takes time, it takes years, it takes Mother Nature. And if it was on the edge of the property, you could do a lot better with this, because you have a road ditch on one side of it, and you have crop on the other. When you're spraying your crop for weeds, you wouldn't be going out into that area. Where that pipeline is at now, it's right in the middle of the field, diagonally crossing the field. And so you put a grass strip out in the middle. Custom sprayers going through there, they're going to kill the grass strip. Not intentionally, they're going to try not to, but that's what's going to happen. So it's almost impossible to plant a cover crop right where that pipeline's at and have it function for 2 or 3 years. Because you're zigging and you're zagging, you've got crop on both sides of it. As I said, if it was on the perimeter of the field, you'd have a roadside or a road ditch on one side, and then you just have one side of that easement or that corridor that you would have to be concerned about. And most of the time, it's going to be a 90-degree impact between the sprayer and the corridor, as opposed to out in the field where you're angling through. You have a better chance on those angles of killing the grass crop in the middle of your field.
So does a subsoiler serve the same function as a deep ripper?
Yes.
And how are those two implements different? Is it just the shape of the knife? Or?
I think it's a matter of semantics of terms. As far as I know, I use those interchangeably.
Do you know of any cultivation equipment that goes deeper than a subsoiler?
No, I'm not aware of it.
Could you turn to page 45 of the direct testimony? Because I've been wondering if this is a typo also. Could you read to yourself, read that first question and your answer, and then we'll talk.
I know what that says, yes, I am in our area. It is at least 6 feet below ground level. That refers to the depth of soil that in some places the soil depth is 6 feet, in other places it's not. Now you can interpret that, and I understand why you're asking, because I was.
Because it talks about this level, so the question asks about the level of cultivation, and implies that you cultivate 6 feet deep. So I'm just asking, do you actually cultivate 6 feet deep?
No. That would be maybe more appropriate to read in our area. It is up to 6 feet.
So you're talking
Cultivation I'm referring to is the soil that will grow a crop, because there's some soil underneath the tillable soil. Some soil doesn't do a whole lot.
So when you say 6 feet, you're talking about the combination of your topsoil and your subsoil.
Yes.
You're not talking about what you actually cultivate with your equipment.
I'm not talking about equipment going 6 feet deep in the ground. That would be an excavation.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could we pull up the KMZ for this property, please? Sir, I just have some questions for you about the route, about these properties and those surrounding them.
Yes.
We are looking at 3 40s, more or less. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the southwest 40 is bordered on the south by, is that 110th Street?
Correct.
The 40 directly east of that one, on the north side of 110th Street, you also own that one, correct?
Correct.
And then, whether through your corporation or through trust, the 40 on to the east of that and north of that one, bordered on the east by A Avenue, you also own those, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Through our trust, as you said.
The route that's depicted there, the white line of the pipeline, that's not the original route that was shown to you, is it?
That is not the first route that Summit Carbon offered me.
Okay. Was the first route that Summit offered you an alignment which would enter your property just east of your grain bin site and then take a diagonal up to the northeast?
That is correct. That was what was first offered to me, and I rejected that because of all the tile lines they would cut and the terraces they would cut. I thought it was a ridiculous placement of a pipeline when, as I offered them the very first day, they could go along the north side of 110th Street. They could make a 45 in that lower right-hand corner where you have the cursor and go straight north. But instead, they have managed to put in all these other turns. What I offered was a much better route than what they're using right now. And it Additionally, another reason that I did not want that original route from the grain bins northeast up to the yes, another reason I did not want that. I have underground electrical wiring going to those grain bins down here. There you go. I have underground electrical wiring going to those grain bins through here. And I have the potential, and I intend to at some point put up another, that's one of the future planning. I have the potential of putting up another grain bin here, another grain bin there, and that line would have been right through those grain bins. Additionally, another problem with that is you would have been paralleling some of these broad-based terraces through here. And the broad-based terraces, as I said, have tile laid into the bottom of the terrace channel. Now, to allow the water to escape, those terraces are level. Those grass-back terraces are graded, but the broad-based terraces are level. So consequently, when they place tile in the channel of those broad-based terraces, it's on a very slight grade. The grade is 2 inches per 100 feet. So if you take a football field, 300 feet long, you've got a 6-inch slope over 300 feet. And if you parallel those terraces and you tear out that tile line that's put in at that very slight grade, it's going to be practically impossible to get that back into grade where it will drain. That was my other reason for not even considering allowing it to do that.
I want to ask you a question about the 40 in the southwest that's shaded red that borders 110th Street.
Yes.
The parcel just south of that 40 that's south of 110th Street.
Yes.
That's owned by a neighbor of yours, obviously.
Yes.
The 40 that's just east of that, is that owned by a different neighbor?
This one? Yes.
So if I'm looking at the route right now, it proceeds to the north on the neighbor to the east, and then jogs to the west before going north up onto your parcel. Is that correct?
Correct. I asked you a question. What is the approximate angle of that turn and this turn?
I do not know, sir.
Well, they're
I
not
want to
quite,
ask you about.
they're not quite 90 degrees, but they're getting pretty close to it.
At some point, someone asked you about having a valve on your property, and it has since been moved onto the property that's directly south of your southwest 40 shaded in red, correct?
I presume it's in this area because I refuse to allow that valve on my place. There was enough intrusion with the pipeline, letting alone having a shut-off fenced around for me to farm around and such as that.
I want to go back to the diagonal route we talked about, and then I'm gonna ask you about the alternative route that you've got a hearing exhibit on. So that diagonal route would have started just east of the green bin site, and then went diagonally to the northeast up to somewhere in there where the pipeline exits your property, correct?
Yes.
In your hearing exhibit is 603, if we can pull that up, the first page. Your proposal is a more straight north and south line, and my real question there is the eastern border there, are you referring to the section line, or are you referring to the next section line over, which would be A Avenue?
I was using this dotted line and calling it a section line, however, that is not A Avenue.
Okay.
This occurred to me last spring that is a potential route because at this route you would only be cutting two seed lines. One starts here and one starts there, and they drain this direction. So you would only be cutting the two tile lines there. You would miss the tile in these terraces. You would miss any tile lines up there. It would be less destruction than what this line would be. And it would give me a setback of almost, but not quite 2,000 feet from that house. Okay. Because I cannot count on my county, although they're attempting to do it, but I cannot count on my county to pass an ordinance, a setback ordinance, because someone is intimidating all the counties with lawsuits and daring them to file, or daring them to put in a setback. And that seems wrong to me, but this is my proposal to try to alleviate my issue over here.
And just so I'm clear, that section line that you've depicted there, just to the east of your proposed route of the pipeline, that would be the section line between
Maher Farms on the west and Market One Maher Living Trust on the east.
Thank you. That was my question. And so this to you is a more amenable route than the currently proposed route and the original diagonal route. Is that fair?
Yes, it is better than either of those. Not as good as my first proposal to go east and then north along A Avenue. That was still the best option if I have to have an option. This is definitely second best.
Sir, assuming someone could make it work with the landowners in the area that already have signed an easement, would you be willing to take a phone call and have a discussion with somebody from someone about your proposed route that's depicted here?
With my attorney present, yes, I would.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Member Burns?
Yeah. Mr. Leonard maybe got some of mine answered, but I just want to clarify. Were you here or did you watch online when we had Mr. Skovanec on the stand?
No.
Okay. So when we had Mr. Skovanec on the stand, I had a list of like over 40 different landowners that were majority Jorde landowners that had gone through the direct testimony and pulled out alternatives that they suggested, and then I asked Mr. Skovanec about those alternatives. And so we went through them parcel by parcel, and our court reporters, one of the nice things is by rotating them is they actually are getting the transcript done for us in a very timely manner. So I did go back to the transcript here from September 7th when I actually had a conversation with Mr. Skovanec about your particular parcel.
I see.
So we did, I'm looking at the transcript right now, and we did have a relatively thorough conversation about this and your parcels. And one of the questions that I asked Mr. Skovanec is I said, and these individuals, referring to your parcel, proposed an alternative route, which is their attachment 22. Mr. Skovanec responded, and just for the sake of the record, this is on page 2322, and it starts on line 21. Mr. Skovanec said that he, referring to you, requested that we move the pipeline to the location that it's currently located, and we accommodated his request to move it there because, as you can see, that alignment does not make sense. There's no reason it needs to be that way. We accommodated his request to move the pipeline in the fashion that it is, and I believe we actually accommodated him twice, 2 different reroutes. So the message I got from Mr. Skovanec when he testified is that the route that we currently see on there, he makes it sound as though that was your proposed route. Is that correct or not?
Not correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify.
That was the route that Summit Carbon proposed when they refused to do the route along 110th Street and then Avenue A.
Okay.
And I reluctantly said to JR, the land agent at that time, well, I suppose this is a possibility. It was before I understood that we were using supercritical carbon. He asked me, well, then can we survey them? I said, I can't stop you. So they went surveying.
So you may have left it a little bit open-ended on that route when he presented that to you, because you're saying because you didn't know some of the other information around the CO2 pipeline.
That is correct. I did not know that information. That was not as desirable as my first offer to them. But it seemed like that was the only offer I was going to get.
And so just out of curiosity, when is the last time that you had a personal conversation or like a physical one-on-one conversation with anybody from Summit?
I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was approximately a year ago about this time.
And then, in terms of the driveway you talked about, and I maybe missed this, but when was the driveway built?
The driveway
Over the waterway so that you can get
this summer.
up this summer. Okay, thank you. And then just a couple others here for you quickly. So you've talked a lot about Kyle and maybe that this project's going to fast track some of your plans.
Absolutely.
And terraces and things of that nature. So I'm just curious, are you familiar with Iowa Code Section 479B 31? And that code section requires Summit Carbon to pay all additional costs for new tile construction caused by an existing pipeline.
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. And are you familiar with Iowa Code Section 479B 33, which would require or empower a landowner to have Summit Carbon provide a representative on site during each phase and separate activity at no charge when farmland improvement is happening within 50 feet of either side of the pipeline?
I'm aware of that.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that those are on your radar. I don't think I have any other questions, so thank you, sir.
Trying to decide if my question's going to get me made fun of by my farming family. When looking at the KMC, your property is highly terraced. And you've put a lot of effort into the terraces. We talked about, so that I was pouring over your previous testimony because I don't want to ask the repetition question, trying to find my mouth rules. So if you said it today and I missed it, I apologize. Some of those contours are fairly tight in the areas where the pipeline theoretically would traverse the tight corner. Does that limit the ability for a subsoiler, a subsoil tillage or large tillage equipment? I just want the caveat to show that I grew up on a farm with very straight rows, so we didn't have to do this a lot.
Yes, the tighter the corner, the more it impedes the function of the tillage. When we, as you can see in some of these older terraces, they were put in with, for the intention of maybe 4-row equipment. We modified most of those because we're 6, 8, 12 row now. So effectively, if I'm understanding this correctly, you couldn't really, it'd be difficult with a large piece of equipment to come in there and do a pass and circle without passing over the same piece of ground twice. You'd almost have to back in and go back out, running over it twice. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for not laughing at my question.
Mr. Jorde.
Thank you. One of the parts asked you a question about 479B.31, that's subsequent tiling. Are you aware that in order to potentially get payment from Summit, should this all be approved, that you have to prove to them that your losses were actually caused by something they did. So if it's years in the future, and who knows what happened in the meantime running your heavy equipment and normal farming across a tile, you have to go back and convince them that it's actually their fault and not someone else's. Are you aware of that? But
Yes, I was, yes.
okay. So it's not as simple as there's a law and they're going to back up the truck with money. You've got to either hire a soil conservationist, a county engineer. You got to prove it up. They can say no, and then you can have a lawsuit. You understand that?
This is what I suspected it was, but when Mr. Burns read that, it didn't quite come across that way. But I suspected that what you have said would be the more common scenario that would develop in that situation.
Then can we pull up Landowner Exhibit 1? It's also 558, I think, the Summit State of Iowa map, proposed map, please. And while we're doing that, what's the name of the ethanol plant near you that Summit intends to hook up to?
Green Plains in Shenandoah.
Green Plains in Shenandoah? Okay. And I can ask another question while we're waiting for that. When we looked at the map of Shenandoah, the one that you produced where you were pointing out the development, which is where, given that you're in a unique situation of being, essentially in Page and Fremont County and their Shenandoah, when you call EMS, is it the city? Is it which county? I mean, how does that all, how do you know who does what?
Well, it's been acquired knowledge over time. My current knowledge of that is Essex services that area. Essex Independent Fire Department services that area in northern Page County, right here. And they're about 8 miles away from that location.
Okay. Now, looking at the map, and maybe we can just zoom in slightly, that's great. So you see down in the southwest corner of Iowa, that's where Fremont Page is, and that's where this proposed ethanol plant of Summit, partner with Summit is, correct?
Yes.
You see, I'll just represent you, it's about 200 miles north of there before we get to the proposed ethanol plant in Ida County. Does that seem fair?
Yes.
So you understand the only reason, sir, you're even sitting here is because Summit wants to travel 200 miles between ethanol plant to ethanol plant, and that's why you're potentially going to be impacted. Objection?
I understand.
State the objection. Okay. This is not redirecting anything that came out on costs. In fact, it's the exact same question that Mr. Jorde asked. All the non-intervening activity landowners that were on this piece of the route.
Okay, thank you. Do we, Mr. Jorde, can we try to keep our retractors across? Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So, with that in mind, Mr. Leonard asked you a question of, well, now we've moved the valve across the road. You remember that question?
Yes.
You understand they haven't moved anything. Nothing exists. Right?
I understand that.
Okay. So when the engineer, Mr. Grant Terry, was out on your land trying to convince you that they couldn't move the route, and he told you that bending at 90 degrees or close to it was a problem and it couldn't be done, correct?
That would be the understanding of why they didn't want to go around my property like my initial offer to them was. Yes.
All right. But you understand that in subsequent sworn testimony here under oath before this board that someone's testified 90 degrees not a problem. Were you aware of that?
I was not aware of that, and this KMZ map is the very first time I have seen what their proposed shut-off valve would look like with the line going to it. I've never seen that.
So would you agree with me, or have you learned throughout these proceedings
say, well, we've already moved a valve, or you know, we can't do this, we can't do that. It really means their preference. It's not that they can't. They can essentially put this line virtually anywhere. You have to understand that.
I do understand that, and I'm readily aware of it. This pipeline could go anywhere, and it's subject to change until it's in the ground.
And then to be absolutely clear, the Mr. Skovanek's testimony that he led us all to believe that you actually wanted the existing route, that's not true. That's not a route you want. It's not a route. It's not even the third least worst option, is it?
Correct.
Okay. And ultimately, although you discussed with Mr. Leonard your second proposed route, which is more towards the east, it's your preference. This isn't even on your land at all, and it should be moved as far to the east, away from you as possible.
Absolutely. That proposed route of mine that is shown up there is a desperate attempt to salvage some sliver of distance and safety for my family.
Thank you, sir. I don't have anything further.
Ms. Hagan, did you have anything additional? Okay, thank you. Mr. Maher, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll take a 1 hour lunch break right now and plan on being back on the record at 1:15.
Called Thomas McDonald of TSL Farms LLC. Okay, thanks.